Official petition from CPR.
Is it okay for me to put the recorder on the table?
Wendy.
Hey Jamie, how you doing?
Mark. Good. Okay.
Or on this end if you want to go around there.
Okay.
Under the new constitution, this is the first time that any petition has actually met 25%.
Mr. Billy?
Yeah, sir.
Is there hard for permission?
And making sure that petitions are generated, that signatures are verified, and that they're here now.
Y'all ready to start move?
Enjoy the familiar faces in the group. Quite an amazing feat at the end of the day. And of course, these are all humans who are responsible.
Thank you all for being here with us today. We are very honored to present on behalf of the over 5,300 Canadian registered voters who have signed the petition for a people-initiated referendum on the proposed cruise berthing facility to present to the elections office to start the verification process, and also to present to Mr. Matthew Forbes as the representative of the governor, as chairman of the cabinet. So we will be presenting the original copy of the petition to the elections office and a certified copy of the original to Mr. Forbes. So I will need a little bit of help to present all these various parts of the document. Bring that back to you.
Do you want me to do it or do you want to do it? Okay. All right, here we go. So, thank you.
Sorry, could you just hold that for me, please?
So that's part one. Yeah. Somebody else want to do part two? Okay. All right. This is part two. I don't know if we need to do.
I know where you did sit down. Lose it was how.
Yeah, so this part one and part two. And that's the whole of our originals.
Okay.
And then this is the addendum to the petition, which is it is a typed version that matches with the electors register. And each page here corresponds as numbered to each page of the originals. So it's easy to make it easier to reference. Yes. All right. And then Mr. Forbes. Pass this to Michelle to present. Okay. Part two. Part two.
Okay.
Thank you.
to work on behalf of the Governor's Office.
Well, firstly, just to say apologies from the governor. He's actually in London at the moment, so he's asked me to come down here. But you know, as you pointed out, you know, we have a responsibility in terms of the elections office as well, which is why we've come down here to support Wes and his team here. And I'm sure they will do a very good and a very quick job in verifying the signatures on the petition. So we look forward to seeing the results of your work, Wes, and then obviously we'll take things from there.
Sorry, just one question, Mr. Forbes, forgive me. Can we assume that you are receiving on behalf of Cabinet as a result of the Governor being the Chairman of Cabinet?
Well, the actual petition is given to the elections office here, so this is, I mean, you've given us a copy, thank you very much for that, but the real petition, if you like, is given to the elections office. They have to then verify that. Right. Once that's been done, then that will then go to Cabinet. So we're down here as a representative of the Governor and as in his role of Chairman of Cabinet.
Well, we've got a copy that we've sent to the Governor's office, confirming what in his capacity as Chairman of Cabinet. So that should be at his desk or in his terminal. Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
Mr. Johan, did you keep a copy for yourself just in case this is not
We'll be happy to share with the press. We believe in full transparency at all times. Okay.
On behalf of the Elections Office, just like to say that we are gearing up to carry out the task as been presented to us this afternoon in relation to the verification process. Officially take on those duties starting tomorrow, and we will work expeditiously to make sure that the verification happens as quickly as we can and as accurately as we can to ensure that we play our part in the process.
Mr. Howell, can you say whether there will be a preliminary report of some sort as to how that verification process will happen before you start it?
We will explain through the media when we will start sending people out in the field, when we'll start taking persons coming into the office. I expect that will be tomorrow. We actually just need to settle the wording of the verification document, and we'll be ready to receive persons tomorrow. It'll take us a couple of weeks to get our list made up in relation to verification areas and complete the last bit of staff training, and then they can hit the road in relation to going household to household, verifying those names on the list. But we'll also have the elections office here open as well, so persons can come in and verify here in person.
Mr. Howell, just one question. Sorry. Sir, with the greatest of respect, is it possible for your office to confirm whether there will be any form of random sampling of the signatures for verification? And the second part of that question would be the persons going out doing the verifying door to door. What will that question look like, and will it be something as simple as, is your name John Smith and did you sign the petition presented to the elections office by CPR Cayman, or is there something more complex than that? For me, it's a yes or no question whether you signed or not.
It's a yes or no question as to whether or not your signature's on there.
Fair enough.
We want to grab the wording of your petition, so we have it accurately saying, I signed a petition with this wording, and I'm from this electoral district, not a signature. That's it.
Thank you very much, sir.
The first part of that question was whether or not we're doing random sampling. Was 100% on, or 25% of the registered electors, whichever comes first.
Sorry, I missed that answer to that question.
So the question was, are we going to sample the list as presented, or are we going to do 100%? So my answer was, we do 100%, or if we hit 25% before we get to 100%, then we stop.
So a sample of the...
No sample
The minimum verification percentage is 25%.
of the registered electors.
And is that going to be from today? So today's register, not next, because there's a new register next month, isn't there?
So the 25%, July 1st becomes the list.
So which list?
It would be July 1st because that would be the current list in play.
Okay, so
the revised list is already out. I think we answered this or I did at the town hall. There may be 16 or so additional names on the July list, so it's not massive numbers in relation to the 25%. But yeah, efficiency-wise, if we exceed the 25%, then we would confirm that they've met the constitutional requirement for that 25% at that time.
Wes, do you need to get a supplementary appropriation for staff? I mean, how fast does that happen?
Relatively quickly. So we submit it through the Deputy Governor's Office and over to Cabinet. But all indications are that that won't be a problem.
Do you know how much that is?
No. But there's two separate processes at this point.
Right, okay.
One would be verification, and then the other would be the
Can I check the hats? Have all three of you officially become election supervisors now instead of your day jobs?
So primarily me, I effectively will not be chief officer as of tomorrow. Someone else will be acting in my stead. Suzanne and Sheena are still in between their offices while they assist with the process.
So in essence, we'll have longer days.
Yeah.
Can anyone clarify, Wes or Matthew, if the petition is verified, that there will be a referendum, or is there? I mean, is the governor making any commitments in terms of ensuring that there is a referendum if a verified petition is presented?
I mean, as you probably read the Constitution, the next step after that, it will need to go through Cabinet to do that. So obviously I can't stand here and prejudge a Cabinet decision like that. But the first stage is for Wes and his team to do what they need to do and verify the signatures, and then it will be discussed by Cabinet.
So if there was an attempt by Cabinet not to have a referendum at this stage, would the governor be watching
stage.
that? No, at that stage.
Well, I mean, as I say, I mean, what we need to do is this process first. So, I mean, we've just been given the petition today, so Wes and his team will be verifying it, and then it will go to Cabinet. So it has to go in stages like that, and we have to see how long this takes. And we've obviously had a discussion, and hopefully that will take place as soon as possible. They've done this before; they do it when they actually verify the voters' register. So it's not a new thing from that point of view.
Are there any limitations on government in pursuing a deal while this verification process takes place?
I think that's probably a question that you need to address to others in government here rather than me. But I mean, all I can say to you is once this has been verified, then it will go to the Cabinet, and the Governor has been very clear that he will ensure that this is done in a fair and transparent manner in accordance with the law, and that's what we will make sure is that the law of the Cayman Islands and the Constitution is upheld at every turn during this, and I think the Governor has given that undertaking already, and that's why we're here today, and why we will obviously work very closely with Wes and his team.
Does that go for during the verification process or during the whole process?
Yeah, I mean, it's for Wes. He's, obviously his office is independent. As he said, he's stepping down from his role as a chief officer to concentrate on this full time. And obviously, we have full confidence in him and his team to do that in a fair and transparent manner in accordance with the law. So as I say, that's why we've come down here today to support that.
Any time
Sorry,
limit?
Mr. James.
Any time limit?
Sorry. Just in accordance with the constitutional provisions, it clearly states that the petition needs to be handed to Cabinet, but the Governor, as chairman of Cabinet, and you being his representative, can you confirm that you're receiving it in that capacity in order to ensure that we are compliant with the requisite relevant provisions?
I mean, we will, as I mentioned to you, also you sent us an email this afternoon asking us to confirm that we've got this and for Wes to do the same, so we will obviously be doing that this afternoon, that we have taken in the position.
Thank you very much.
I have a question to the elections office. Can you confirm whether or not you guys will still be accepting names, or is this a cut-off point?
We were having a discussion right before we came downstairs, and the difficulty with that is that we want to ensure that the process is transparent and that the list that we're working from is a known one. So while we can accept some additional names in the early part of the process, once we get towards the end, it's going to be more difficult to keep track of what's been added and what's moving around. So ideally, we want to work with one list as opposed to having an evolving list over time. And the process has to come to some natural end as well, so we want to ensure that.
Will there be an announcement to that effect?
Absolutely, we will communicate very clearly with you guys in relation to that.
Mr. Howell, in collecting some signatures, sir, the list that was given for residences, a relatively high percentage in some areas. When you go to the house, that person isn't there, but there's somebody else there who's might have come from West Bay, but they're now living in Northwood or North Sound Estates. How will you be able to track those people down? Are you going? You got some dogs to go out there and ferret them down?
So for the persons who have moved and not updated their electoral address, I believe the CPR group were noting changes in address, possibly. If not,
I wouldn't count on that.
we are opening the elections office for folks to come to us. So if we can't find them, they can find us. For now, we're not moving anywhere. So we're here at Smith Road Center, second floor. They can come in and verify their signatures during our office hours. Once we get going, we'll open additional hours in the evening to allow people to come after work. But for the folks that are not where they say they are in relation to either the referendum signature or the election register of electors, then they should come to us if we can't find them. We'll call and do all the other things that we can to try to track them down. But if they have moved, come find us where we are.
Okay, suppose they don't come to you.
If we can't find them and they don't come to us, then we can't verify. So that's a.
So you're going to say they're unverified signature?
Yes.
Although they're still on the elector roll and they can return back like Joseph and Mary did and went back to Jerusalem, they can still come back and vote, and you would count the vote. But you wouldn't count it if their signatures on this.
No,
and they say they're from, you have them from West Bay, but they're now living in Northwood.
Yeah. So we will use all the necessary channels, media and others, to prod folks to come and bring themselves forward. We can't publish names of the persons that are on there to say, Bill Adam, we can't find you, so please find us. But we will encourage folks to come to us and let them know that we're coming to their known addresses in order to do the verification process. But it is a verification process, so if we can't verify, then we can't complete that route.
I can see serious problems with that, sir.
Yeah.
Very serious problems developing, because that's going to be denying a lot of people who have worked hard to get it and people who have signed it in all good faith. Because
it's a process.
That's going to be a problem.
It's a process quite similar to what CPR has done in relation to signing up folks at supermarkets and other places and offering to go to houses and collecting signatures. Other persons who are going door to door. So if the persons can be found through
but they don't know they can't be found.
All I would say, if I may, is the elections law requires all registered electors to update their addresses. There is a form that you can fill out. So if you know that you have moved, then we encourage you to change your address. That way there is a means for the elections office to actually make contact with you with respect to your new address. I think that will be helpful to the process.
And while we're on record here, I can say now, using Mr. Billy as a prompt, say, if you're on the list and you've moved and not updated your address, then please do so over the next couple of weeks and ensure that we're able to find you when we're doing the verification process. And that's whether or not you're actually on the list of signatures or not. It's a requirement to be on the elections law for you to have your current address updated with us. So we urge you to do that, particularly if you're on the list of petitioners, to ensure that we can find you.
Mr. Howell, I have one question.
No, I'm still on this subject. Still on this. Very important. Ms. Bothwell, you come from the court system. You know you have bailiffs there. And when they want to serve a warrant on somebody, they employ the bailiffs to go out and find them. And the bailiffs usually find them. And so I'm suggesting, being as it's a government is wanting to introduce this new thing, new way of doing it, that they should hire the bailiffs if they don't find them right away. And that they should then go out. Otherwise, there's going to be problems.
I'm not sure that would be an appropriate process, because the bailiff have a very prescribed area of function. And furthermore, anywhere in government, if the people are being served, we do rely on the government databases that tell us where people live. So that is why, particularly in this process, it is a responsibility of the registered elector to update the elections office of where you live. That is why when we have referendums, we're able to make contact with you if necessary. And also in the election year, if you are going to vote, you want to be able to vote in the electoral district that you're living in, as opposed to where you were previously living in and where the election register says you are, and it may not be the case. So that is in the round the importance of people providing us with this updated information. I know that it is something that people often forget, but it is very important. So now that we have received the petition, there will be heavy publicity from our office, and we will encourage members of the public who know that they have moved to please update the stuff. We will be taking Secondary and tertiary means to try and locate people, but I think it will be a comprehensive effort.
If I can just ask, as you mentioned before earlier, Mr. Howard, CPR came and made themselves available at stuff like local supermarkets. Is that being considered by your office for, people who may not be able to make it out to the elections office, or you're not able to find them, but they know that on, say, Saturday you might be at a particular supermarket? And what big consideration, what have you guys come to a conclusion with us on that?
We'll announce a schedule for where we will be and when we will be.
Another quick
Start.
question. Since, as Mr. Billy was talking about, if you have unverified signatures, can you just simply contact, say, Johan and this group and ask us to help find where those verified signatures are, bring them to you?
Happy to exercise all reasonable options in relation to funding.
I have one question, Mr. Howard. Are we going to receive similar adverts and spending like we see now with the report in terms of getting information out? So persons who are not reachable are aware that the election office is open on a daily basis to accommodate individuals who you might not be able to contact, because if we're going to get similar funding, I think that'll be very effective in terms of getting the message out, because we can't put one ad out a week and expecting people to hear that one ad on the radio. And I think we need to explore all of the media houses and all of the print media in order to get that message out, so people know that you guys are available on a daily basis to verify these persons.
Again, we'll take all reasonable steps, including using the media. The media's been particularly excellent over the years in relation to PSAs and getting messages out, some paid, some unpaid, but that's not unreasonable to ask.
One question for Deputy Bothwell. Talking about the validity and the accuracy of the list, and it being the responsibility of persons to ensure that they've updated the elections office as to their accommodation. Can you confirm if this list has now been accurately scrubbed to remove persons that have passed on? Because for years the electoral register continues to have persons who have passed on the list, which then counts towards the overall threshold of the 25%. So can the elections office confirm here on the record that they have scrubbed the electoral register of all persons who have been deceased and contacted relevant government agencies who issue death certificates to ensure that the names match up with the persons who actually passed?
So we do get regular updates from the General Registry in relation to persons who have been deceased. That list is not always a complete list as to all the persons that are deceased. An example would be if you passed away in another country, for example, the death certificate is issued someplace else. The registering officers also contact the funeral homes. They also review the newspapers and even Facebook pages. But again, and we've heard this often and frequent, that there are persons who are deceased on the list. If you know of individuals who are deceased, then please let us know. We verify and we scrub based on what is known to us. But if we don't know, then we don't know. So if you are aware of names, then please provide those names to the elections office.
We provided over 5,300 names of people that have signed the petition that are alive.
Yes, exactly.
That is not good enough to be qualified. So if I said to you, Billy Adam passed last week, someone's going to say to me, well, can you provide a death certificate for Billy Adam? I'm not next of kin, so I can't do that.
No, agreed.
Watch out, you know.
However, it is capable, but it is important to say though, people pass aspersions that the list is not accurate because there are deceased persons on there, but they don't go to one step further to provide the names of the deceased persons. It's a very simple process. So every time that somebody says there's somebody deceased, then please offer the name. That's the ultimate solution. If you have information that we don't have, thank you very much. We'll receive that and we'll action it as soon as possible. On the revised list that is out, we can remove deceased persons up until a magistrate signs off on that list. So at any time,
thank you, sir.
Please provide that information.
Thank you.
So thank you for that.
Mr. Howard, I'm still on this verification thing and the registered and not being able to find. Now, the Constitution doesn't mention that this is part of it. The FCO is here. And so, is this something that is going, because this condition, there was a condition in order to trigger a voter-initiated referendum. 25% of the people that were on the list signed the petition. Now, they never said, oh, but we're going to go around, and oh, but if we can't find them, we're not going to count them, and oh, but. And don't get me, this isn't anything against you, sir. I have a lot of respect for all you three people and the people upstairs. However, this is somebody has handed you an ill-conceived, terrible condition, asking you to do the impossible nearly, and for not a good reason, because they really don't want it to work, otherwise they would have passed a law.
So Mr. Billy, we may have to
dangerous. We're in dangerous grounds here.
We may have to agree to disagree on this one. In 2016, 2017, we went door to door and verified almost 100% of the persons that are on the register of electors. Those persons that we couldn't find, we publicized and they came into the office. We will do everything in our power to verify the names on the list. This is an exercise that we take very seriously. I doubt that we're going to have huge numbers of persons that we won't be able to find or that can't find us. So we may well be arguing over minute numbers and it's really early in the game at this point.
If it comes down to that, and if that is a reason why it's not accepted,
understood.
No more say today.
However, Mr. Howell, quick look, Katrina. I just want to find out, because now it seems like you guys have identified the process and verification. How did you go about coming to that verification process without a referendum law? Did you take legal advice or anything of the sort? And would you be able to share that with us in terms of how you formalized the verification process without a referendum law?
By decree or regulation?
So we took legal advice in relation to the acceptance of the 25% in absence of an established process for verification. Yes, in relation to sharing the legal advice, no, that's not something that we would be in a position to do. And the process that we are using is one that we use prior for the house-to-house verification of the entire register of electors. And it's a similar process that ESO uses for their surveys, including census and other things. So it's a very methodical way of going about verifying the individuals that are provided to us. So,
position. Without the legislation for referendums, how are you going to make that crucial decision on timing of when the cutoff time is at? And what authority are you going to be working under in order to make that decision with the absence of the legislation?
There is no authority at this point in relation to timing. Our commitment is that we'll get it done as efficiently as possible, so we've made that commitment. The governor to whom I report to has also made that commitment. In absence of legislation, for which you will well know there is none, this is the best approach that we've thought of and are executing in relation to getting this process done as expeditiously as possible. And this is also the first time, right? So,
and this is what brings me back to my first initial question is, do you have outlined some guidelines on how you're going to go about this because of the absence of those legislation, so we can, the people, watch what you're doing, that you're doing it according to those guidelines that you've agreed upon? Because basically without those guidelines given to the public, nobody knows what you're doing and how you're doing it and whether you have the authority to do it or where you're going from. It's a reasonable position to ask, where's your legal guidance?
Stay tuned. We've received the documents this afternoon. We'll soon be publishing what our process is in relation to, and we were also committed to explaining what those timelines will look like once we've gotten the households broken down, to figure out how many stops we have to make, for lack of a better word. So we'll soon be able to provide some details as to how many people we have in the field, what electoral districts they're going to be in at what times, which will help to say if you were registered in East End and we passed through East End last week and we didn't pick you up, then please come see us or call us, or we'll try to find you. So all those details will come out as soon as we are able to analyze the list and then break it into those areas of registration.
I think just by way of a brief comment, I think Ms. Bothwell will agree with me that we're going to get some guidance itself, albeit of a relatively limited nature, from the Constitution itself. Section 70 is going to give us some guidance, but there is also a plethora of case law from which, and the wording in the Constitution itself, from which you'll see the test for time is based on the standard test, reasonableness. And then you get into administrative law and judicial review and all the nasty things that we don't talk about on a day like today. Today's a day of celebration for the people. So we don't look at it from a negative, but standing here as a lawyer and an officious bystander, albeit a staunch supporter of this group, I just felt that it was important that we understand that we're not starting from scratch. We do have some guidance, and that's where your legal team is best left to do what they do best, and leave you guys to do the fancy footing and talking at press conferences and a momentous occasion like this. You deserve this platform, and we should never try to take it from you. But all these things, we're going to keep going back. You're quite right. The elections law creates creatures of statute. So you look at the powers conferred under that law to this group who have been very honest, very forthright. And I'd say youth to youth did it for you, Mr. I'm that old. I heard you make your first speech and you were probably 11. I knew you then, and I know you now. I believe, out of a conflict of interest, I should say that Mrs. Bothwell is more family than most family for me. And so that's just by way of full and frank disclosure. But the fact of the matter is we all recognize that this is one very small step. We also understand, Mr. Howell, that at some stage you have to say, the buck stops with us. You have to place us in a position to do what we have the statutory power to do, no more, no less. So we recognize that there will have to be a cut-off period of time. But we also recognize that this is your first opportunity to see democracy as it was intended to work under the Constitution. That it would be remiss of me not to recognize the efforts of the lady on your right. Okay? But this is a small step. We're going to cross some uncertain ground, uncharted territory. Not uncharted, uncharted territory. So there are going to be times when we can't talk like this. And there are going to be times when we won't like each other as much as we do this afternoon. But I believe we're all striving for the same thing. And I'd like to say thank you, because you did what I couldn't do.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you. I'd like to make one final point while we're still on the record here. Just in terms of, CPR Cayman is continuing to collect signatures.
Yes.
We had intended to continue to collect, but also on hearings that there would be a door-to-door 100% in-person verification. And with great concerns about your ability to find people that have moved or are off island, we think it's very important that your office continue to receive, accept more additional pages of signatures from us as time goes on. So we had discussed in the original meeting with the elections office that we could continue to hand in signatures. Obviously there will have to be some reasonable point at which that stops. But but I think while you are still going out and while that process is still ongoing, we'll definitely be collecting more signatures. And I just want to point out one potential difference between your 2016 door-to-door process and this process. In that process, I'm assuming you knocked on every single door.
Yes.
Whereas if this process, you're only going to knock on the doors of where you think the 5,300 people are,
yes,
then you're going to be missing a lot of people, and your accuracy and ability to find 100% is going to be much less than it would be if you were knocking on 100% of doors. So I just ask you to bear that in mind.
Yeah, so whether or not we knock on every door or only the doors for which we expect to find people is a bit of the efficiency that's on there. So when we knocked on every door, that process took over 4 months to finish up. So we're approaching it from, we have a reasonable idea of where most people are. We're going to be heavily publicizing where we will be, and we hope to close the gap between those two using those methods, in addition to the other verification locations as well.
Wes, how many people do you have to do this? How many people do you have to do this?
We're looking at about 100 people to
100
100
people. And are those going to be people that are hired soon? No, not people who currently work for the election office. You've got to hire 100 people before you can start.
What it is that we always use the ESO reference persons. These are people who are used to doing these surveys and they're used to doing these activities. So we actually have an identified group of people who just need some level of training for this particular exercise, then quickly go out into the field.
And if you're hiring, I'll volunteer for free.
We have a vendor who's asking about persons who may be off island, who can't come in to your office. How can they be verified?
That's what they call the office.
Yeah, so the registering officers who are in each of the electoral districts have a better idea of who individuals are, and they have individual methods in which they use to verify. So they may ask for telephone conversations or other things, but being close to the ground in electoral districts, they would be able to better identify individuals who we can't physically get to. Yeah.
Katrina, can I ask you, is there some way you can kind of, as a group, sort of reach out to you? Because these are engaged people, they're not, the 21,000 that you had to check, many of those are not engaged. I mean, they may have registered to vote, but as you said, they play a part. We're assuming that these are engaged people in the process. So, are you...
These people aren't the problem. The problem is in the government administration building.
Is it possible that you can reach out to people and ask them again, you were engaged in the first place, be engaged again, to make sure that we don't have this problem of these guys not being able to find people?
Well, we certainly are. As we continue to collect signatures and we set up tables at Hurley's and other locations, as people come to us, we are doing our best to also educate people that an in-person verification process will happen, and we're encouraging people to present themselves to the election office. And we've been promising to update them on the different methods that they can use to verify themselves. So we definitely will continue to do our part to encourage those who have signed to make themselves available for verification. However, we have to recognize a lot of people in Cayman are very busy. They don't get out to the surprisingly, they don't get out to the supermarket. I mean, we were at Hurley's for months, and there's people that we did not encounter, that we only encountered when we went to their home in East End, on Farm Road, or in, these fairly, in different locations, and they don't have the time to go out, and a lot of them don't read the newspaper, they don't follow the news, they don't know what is happening, and so those are kind of the people that I'm most concerned about, and it's just the society that we live in where people are very busy and not necessarily all staying in tune. So, but we will definitely do our part to ensure as many people as we are able to contact are aware.
And I would say if that people have any concern about, not being contactable, call or email the elections office. If you leave your name and your telephone number, somebody will get back to you, and then that is also means by which the registering officers can make contact to say, hi, you called, did you sign the petition, how can I make contact with you to verify your signature?
So as we did in the door-to-door, the registering officers are actually the supervisors of that area. So the registering officer for East End supervises all the persons in East End. They actually have a better idea of who is living where, even if it's somebody living temporarily, more so than me who doesn't live in East End. So by using that local knowledge, we really hope this to be a non-issue in relation to finding people. And the media has been brilliant in relation to just getting the word out about the process, whether it be elections or a referendum. So again, if you continue with your efforts and always combined, I really don't see it being an issue to find the vast majority of people that are out there.
Is it possible to start advertising ASAP to people who are planning to leave the island for the summer, say 2 months to...
Speak a little louder.
School will be out in less than 2 weeks. So people
Absolutely.
So that's an important message, that please, if you're going away for the summer, call the elections office now.
And will they be able to email, call? I mean, will a call suffice if they are already off island, or if they're off island
we
by
just
the
need
time?
a contact details so that we can then put the registering officers in contact with them, and they'll complete that process.
Mr. Forbes, can you tell us the origin of this idea and where else it's done?
Sorry, what idea? You mean
This
about
verification
people's?
stuff.
Well, I mean, I think
Where did it originate?
the origin of that is as I think, as the lady over here mentioned, is in the Constitution. So I think everything in Cayman is underpinned by the law, and eventually, that's what we need to do. So I think we've got confidence in Wesley. He's going to make very good efforts to do a good job on this.
No, it's a
if
verification.
people at the end of that, if there is an issue or a dispute over that, then one thing that I think is really strong in Cayman is our legal system and our judiciary here, and I'm pretty sure that they will deal with it in a fair and just manner according to the law. And I would repeat what I said before. This is about the law. And eventually, as you rightly pointed out, the law will decide what is wrong or is not, is right in its case, and that's really what we have to rely on, I think. What we can be sure is that the people sat here are going to do their best endeavours to try and verify this list by whichever means and in a reasonable manner. And I think they're going about it the right way. Clearly, they have to verify it. We have to know who has signed this, and that the names on this are actually people that have signed the petition, and that's what Wes and his team will do.
When the people for referendum petition was submitted back in 2003, I think it was, there were 7,000 signatures during the McKeever reign.
Sorry, for the what side?
People for referendum petition that was submitted. Mr. O.C. Connor was the one. All he did was verify, are those names on the list. He didn't go around to find out, did you sign it?
I think
that question was not asked.
I haven't. That's
Mr. Wesley, can you
the
confirm
first time that we're looking at a people's initiated
case?
referendum. You've got to hit that threshold.
We need to find out, because I'm going to ask again.
It wasn't of national importance back then.
Pardon?
Different
It wasn't of national importance
Been a
back
different
then.
No, this is a new thing. Where it come from? Who the idea? Who is it birthed this idea?
I think we can debate this all afternoon, but at the end of the day, Wes and his team are going to make best efforts to try and verify this list. The names have to be verified. I think we all accept that. You can't just have a list of names, presented and saying, okay, we're going to have a referendum on it. You've got to verify that those names are actually registered voters, and that's what Wes and his team will do. And if there's any disputes about that afterwards, then it will become a matter for the courts.
So I think what he's suggesting is that you and your representation needs to enforce the cabinet starts to bring legislation to govern this, because you speak about according to law, but there's no law to govern this process. None.
Well, I think as the she disappeared, the lady now. I think the thing is that there will be case law and other law underpinning this. I mean, the courts can take a decision on all of these matters. There are lots of issues like that where they will look at precedents probably from other jurisdictions and things as well to go forward. But just because our law isn't written in statute here doesn't mean that isn't underpinned in the law of the land. I mean, this will be a reasonable, fair and transparent process. And I hope at the end of it that everybody will recognise that for what it is. Not everybody will be happy at the end of this, I'm sure, but it will be done in a fair and reasonable manner.
If you allow me one last question. Is the governor going to encourage cabinet, as the chair of cabinet, to enforce some sort of legislation in short order so we are not presented with this kind of situation again?
I think the governor will, in terms of this, will encourage cabinet officers to follow the rule of law in terms of how this is dealt with. In terms of bringing forth new legislation, I think that remains to be seen. We'll have to see. I mean, this process itself will probably actually, put forward some of the challenges that we might face, and that may therefore inform new legislation going forward. And I think that's the same with a lot of sort of policy and a lot of laws that are formed. You learn from what you're doing, and this is obviously a very good test case on how to run a referendum.
The direct question is the governor going to encourage legislation as a result of the problems that we're